too. Um, but welcome to, you know that this is Solace and Serenity because you have joined us here. And anytime we get together, we visit our mission, our vision, and our core values. Our mission is to equip change makers with the tools to look within and actively respond to daily life from a centered place. Our core values are connection, inclusiveness, and love. And so these values serve as filters for the offerings that we share with each other here in our local, I'll call this our local community and the world at large. Our vision is to serve as a global community using contemplative spirituality to heal, renew, and inspire. And um, last week, I shared a truth communication entitled Gas and Groceries. I would like to continue this discussion today as we kind of are presencing ourselves to the reality of politics, economics, um, the orders that are coming out of Washington, D.C., and how that impacts all of us. So before I get any further, a couple of things. As I share this keynote now, it changes how I see all of you. And so if there is any point where you'd like me to slow down or go back to something or you didn't hear me clearly, then you're welcome to unmute and just say, hey, Tia, can you kind of slow down? Or I'm not tracking with you, whatever, however you feel moved to get my attention. But I also want to start with the words from Howard Thurman from Jesus and the Disinherited. This is the chapter on fear. And I think one of the things that is most concerning to me is recognizing the overall impact of what's happening in our country, in the world, over a sustained period of time and what that does to our collective nervous system. And so I was on a very intentional mission to find my copy of Jesus and the Disinherited, which I often pick up and set down in places, but I found it. So this is from Fear. It's the chapter on fear, and it's a passage from page 29, where Thurman says, there are few things more devastating than to have it burned into you that you do not count and that no provisions are made for the literal protection of your person. The threat of violence is ever present, and there is no way to determine precisely when it may come crushing down upon you. In modern power politics, this is called a war of nerves. And I think I'm drawn to this because I consider it to be an act of violence. To sit perpetually with the things that we are sitting with, both locally, nationally, and globally, the things that we are, very real things that we are experiencing. The genesis of this series came from me sharing last week about, putting a $13 in my gas tank and feeling like my car kind of laughed at me. But that's a very real thing, right? And I shared this interaction that I had with the gentleman who helps um, sack groceries at the grocery store, and the replay for that will be available this coming week. So the intention of this series is to speak to the spiritual and physical impact of scarcity. And today I want to add a layer. I want to add this lens of currency, empire, and also identity. So I know that there are uh, tangible implications to what I'm speaking about. And that I want to hold those things as sacred and also invite us to consider the spiritual and the impacts that this has on our psyche as a way to lean into what wisdom teachers like Thurman shares, like Jesus shares, and that's to remain centered and grounded in our identity. And so the flow for today, uh, y'all, I'm very excited to speak about this because when I have seen what's been happening when it comes to American currency, I'm like, oh my gosh, when are we going to talk about this? So today's the day. I'm going to share a tale of two coins, and then I want to look at one of those coins and invite us to explore three things about the coins. And then I want to bring this back to monetary value and human worth as a way to kind of orient our identities as we are living in um, the climate that we are living in. So, are you ready? All right. Take this as a yes. All right. A tale of two coins. Let me let me give you, first of all, I'm going to talk about the current president. And as I was putting this together, I was like, this should probably come with like just a warning that the name will be mentioned and, just, I don't know, I feel like it's a trigger word at this point. So a disclaimer about that. But I'm doing this from the point of making some what I believe to be really relevant parallels to the time that Jesus lived and the wisdom that he shared. So we're going to first look at oh, now I can't see it. Give me 1 second, y'all. I need to I lost my mouse. I see it, but I don't see it. Here it goes. Okay, so what you see here is um, a press release. And now I can't see Zoom at all. So just again, sharing that, get my attention if you need to. So in March 26th exactly of this year, the Treasury announced that Trump's signature is to appear on future US paper currency. The press release reads, in honor of the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump's signature will appear on future U.S. paper currency along with the Secretary of the Treasury, marking the first time in history for a sitting president. And I find this relevant because Jesus talks about these things. He talks about money. He talks about uh, bread. He talks about labor, debt, worry. And so, again, leaning into this things that he talked about and seeing how first century wisdom is applicable and relevant in the 21st century. So this is talking about paper currency, and it's talking about paper currency because it's actually against the law to put a current president or former living president's image on our currency. So when I went to Google and just tried to get some updates on where things stand with what's going on in the Treasury Department as it relates to the image and signature of the current president, this is what came back. So yes, the Treasury Department and the US Mint are pushing forward with multiple coins featuring Donald Trump to mark the nation's 250th anniversary. However, while a draft design of a dollar coin has been previewed, a final design and issuance plan for a circulating dollar coin have not been officially finalized. Now, remember, I just said it's actually against the law for the image of a former president who is living or a current president to have their image on our currency. So this gives just a brief status of the coins. So the dollar coin, Congress passed bipartisan legislation in 2020 authorizing the Treasury Secretary to issue $1 coins for the 2026 semi-quincentennial. The Treasury has shared drafts of a dollar coin which prominently depict Trump's face on the front and his raised fists on the back. But the specific face value, sizing, and final design remain under active consultation. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind his signature is already going on to our paper currency, which is the third thing here. I'll just skip to that. So the currency signature, the Treasury Department separately announced that Donald Trump's signature will be featured on U.S. paper currency, making him the first sitting president whose name will appear on paper. We saw that in the press release. And then the second point here, which you probably have seen this commemorative gold coin. So it's like there's some things to work out around legally um, placing his image on the dollar coin. And so there's this production going on of this commemorative coin, right? Which kind of bypasses that law. So we want to keep all of those things in mind as we look at this second coin. And what I want to do is draw some parallels to life in the first century and also to scripture. So here's coin number two, which is really coin number one because it's an ancient coin. And so what we're looking at is the denarius. And it features Tiberius, and the inscription on it essentially reads Tiberius Augustus Tiberius, son of, notice the words here, divine Augustus. Okay. The reverse reads, it makes this reference to the high priest, right? So here on this ancient coin, we have this image of a political figure, and we have this connection to this figure from the aspect of uh, the divine, which is brings me to Luke 12, 13, 17. So maybe I'm going to read the whole passage. And so maybe if you want to just in the posture of Lexio. Just notice what sticks out to you as I read this. And am I going to read from, it's not, I'm sorry, y'all. It's not Luke, it's Mark. This should read, and actually let me fix it because I don't want to be sending people to the wrong verse. All right. So we're going to look at Mark 12, verses 13 through 17. And if you would just like to notice what you notice. It says, later they sent some of the Pharisees and Herodians to Jesus to catch him in his words. They came to him and said, Teacher, we know that you are a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are, but you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we? But Jesus knew their hypocrisy. Why are you trying to trap me? He asked. Bring me a denarius and let me look at it. They brought the coin, and he asked them, Whose image is this? And whose inscription? Caesar's, they replied. Then Jesus said to them, Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. And they were amazed at him. So the denarius is the coin that we just looked at. And if you'd like to share what stood out to you from that reading in the chat, you're welcome to. But I want to draw this parallel that here, what's happening in this text is the Pharisees and the Herodians. So you have the religious figures of the day and the political figures of the day coming together. And the verse says, to catch him in his words. So they bring him the coin and he asks him, whose image is this and whose inscription? Caesar's, they replied. Then Jesus said to them, Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. And they were amazed at him. Now, this, what we see happening today is a modern day move from a very ancient playbook, right? Like aligning yourself with currency, money, putting your inscription on it, putting your image on it. This is the way of empire. This is the way of Caesar. This is, and I know there's a lot of angst around Christianity and a lot of manipulation when it comes to Christian nationalism. And this is like exhibit, pick your letter or number in the alphabet. So this is not anything new that is happening in our country today. And I want to bring our attention to three things about the denarius, the one coin, three things, and kind of sit with this for a minute. So, first is the coin itself contained an image of Caesar. And this matters within the context of these verses from Mark, because images were forbidden in the first century, in keeping with the commandment from Exodus that says, You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on earth beneath or in waters below. You shall not bow down to them and worship them. So this comes from the Ten Commandments. So this coin, if we kind of try time travel back and imagine ourselves as standing within this conversation between the Pharisees and Herodians and Jesus, there's some very deep meanings here, right? So the coin itself contained the image of Caesar, and this matters because this was forbidden. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is the coin literally claimed Tiberius's divinity as God. So there's this tie to um, to Tiberius's identity and correlating it to God, which we've all, I'm guessing, seen these images that have come depicting our current president as a figure of um, saviorhood and divinity. As, yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm trying to reel myself back, knowing this is going to be on YouTube, but you see where I'm going with this. There have been many images of um, the current president that portray him as this divine figure. That's a more clear and calm way to articulate it. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing about this one coin has to do with the tribute tax, or it was also known as a poll tax. And what this did is it counted heads for all people under Caesar's empire. And it was a reminder that the Jewish homeland was being ruled by a pagan king who claimed to be God. And I'll just leave that at that. So those are the three things. Um, what these three things mean and what this coin represented was uh, it was politically and religiously offensive. If Jesus had affirmed the tax, he would have been seen as collaborating with Rome and would have been considered a traitor to the common cause of freedom. If he had rejected the tax, he would have been handed over to Pilate as a revolutionary. But what he does here is something that's revolutionary. And I realize that the title of this is Gas and Groceries. And I think that it's important that as we navigate these real world systemic issues, that we fall into the subtleness of and the revolutionary aspects of Jesus's response. And it's a very non-dual, it's a very contemplative response. So he avoids both the extremes. And at the same time, he reorients divinity, kinship, and worth. So going back to the verse, he says, "Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." And so this brings me to monetary value, worth, and identity. What he's doing here in a very direct and often missed revolutionary way is he's saying the physical coin belongs to Caesar. Divinity and true kinship belong to God. So he's talking about a different economy here. Without negating the economics of the time. So he's saying the economics of monetary value exist, and there is a broader economy that also exists. And that economy is one of worth and belonging to the divine. So he's making a strong statement about monetary value and human worth. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's. And as I was sitting with this, I started to think about, and I'm going to stop sharing here so I can kind of um, come into Zoom with you all. Change this so I can see everybody. Um, as I was thinking about this, uh, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Like he's talking about a coin, but I have a sense that he's also talking about more more than that. Like the the um the stress that comes with being overtaxed, the attack on the collective nervous system that comes with the economic realities of that time and this time. So I see it as like an opening of not um, bypassing the heaviness of this reality, but also saying like, what does this coin represent? And when I give it back to Caesar, what else am I giving back with it? The stress, the mental, spiritual, emotional, physical impact that this is having on our collective society. Which doesn't mean that the needs disappear, right? That the daily bread is still a reality. But I see it as like give the burdens back to the system. Give the burdens back to the system and put the weight of those burdens on that coin if necessary. And then reorient to this bigger economy of God to what is God's. And so this is, of course, deeply tied to what we explore as a community on a regular basis, and that is worth and identity. And we've looked at how the false self, that unconscious programming that orients identity on believing that we are what we have, we all are what we do, we are what others think, say, and feel about us can become it easily become a default during these times. So creating creating space isn't even the right word, just reorienting our identity in this broader economy feels like something worth mentioning during this time as a way to respond to this war of nerves that Howard Thurman refers to. One more thing I'll read comes from The Law of Divine Compensation, which is a book by Marianne Williamson, which in a way, she's talking to the about the false self. Um, the egoic fear-based thinking of the world, which is 180 degrees away from the thinking of God, falls like a veil in front of our eyes, obscuring what is real. So, how do we transcend the ego and lift the veil? This veil of illusion is automatically lifted when we remember who we are. She also says, and why we're here. The key to power in any situation is to be clear about two things. Who am I really? And why am I here? Those two questions answered correctly, which I feel like is strong language. But it's what she says. Those two questions answered correctly give you the power to work miracles. And so this brings me back to this topic of empire and groceries. And I think in a way, it also brings me back to the blessing that Bryant shared. As Bryant shared, I heard this as a model for a broader economy within their community builder. So I'm working through this in real time, but I'll do my best to share what I mean by that. So leaning back to Marianne Williamson's words, the key to power in any situation is to be clear about two things. Who am I really? So when Bryant was sharing the blessing, they shared that in each of the anecdotes, in each of the experiences and interactions that they had, there was an awareness within them that, oh, I was planning to do this thing, but what is actually happening in my lived experience right now is why I'm here. So I think I get a little hesitant to share this, answering the question, why am I here? And using the word correctly, because it feels like big and purposeful, which it is, but the big purposeful thing is often the little thing that's present in this moment. So the why am I here is, oh, I'm here to share with community now in this moment from this seat in this room. And when we um, sign off and say goodbye, my why I'm here has deep roots in what I do vocationally, but it also shows up in like when I open that door and then my daughter is the person in front of me. Like that's purpose. That's a why I'm here too. I don't know if that's making any sense, but why I'm here can feel big and lofty. And why I'm here is often responded to in what Bryant shared, this awareness of, oh, this is what I am being invited to be present to in this moment. Um, and then the question about um, who am I really? And so in this exchange that Bryant shared with us, there is this um, awareness of, oh, the economics of this moment are for me to be present, um, to offer regulation where it will be received, to offer guidance where it will be received, And then through that presence and interaction, there's also this um, economics of, do you have what you need to do your laundry? So give to Caesar what is Caesar's and be present to uh, how God is pouring God's self out in this moment. Last week, I talked about how the woman with the issue of blood gave all her money to doctors, and often the question isn't asked what type of system would take all of a woman's money in the first century, and how the stress on the individual, um, it is not meant to be held by the individual, that it's the movement of spirit is out into this field of communal creation. So, um, who am I really? I'm a child of the divine. Why am I here? Well, I'm here to talk about coins today and a broader economy. And that's what I'm doing in this moment. And Williamson says that these two questions give the power to work miracles. So that's what I have to share today as part of the continuation of this series. Um, Thank you, Bryant, for the blessing that you shared. And I wasn't sure, the truth communication felt open until I heard the blessing. So I'm going to pause there and invite questions about anything that I might have shared. I did see that the chat had things that I could not keep up with. So, any questions or things that I kind of stumbled through that are worth revisiting?
You hit it. You hit the nail on the head with this. So yeah, like as soon as you talked about the started talking about, how uh, he has his, having his signature on the U.S. paper currency and all of that, and you started talking about the denarius, I immediately thought about that scripture where Jesus says, "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto God what is God's."
Hmm.
Yeah. So awesome.
Thank you, Walter.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm just catching up with the chat a little bit.
I had this DVD. It was called The Revolutionary. I think it was produced by TBN, and yeah, that particular part was included in that film. And so yeah, not only did I remember the verses, but I also have, like, visuals to go along with it.
Ed, hello.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I thank you for having me today. I just want to add a little something because when I when I hear Jesus' words that you shared, render Caesar's to what is Caesar's and God to what is God's, um, I think about boundaries. I think about Jesus teaching us the boundaries of how to live, um, for God in as an exile in a land that's not completely ours, but uh, we still are called to be human. We're still called to be um, people who honor and people who worship God. And for me, when I think about the flip side of that, if I'm going to render to Caesar what belongs to God, um, I am engaging in a far lesser God.
Mm,
I'm I'm engaging in a system that demands my spirit, my personhood, my humanity, and I'm kind of bargaining with my value system because I'm trying to fit into a framework that says you are a commodity, you are a chess piece, and you're only valuable when you have presented yourself as someone who can be used or leveraged to further the kingdom versus me investing into the humanity that God has given me. And so I see Jesus showing us how to function and operate, keeping our humanity,
mm,
keeping our relationship with God with a certain sense of honor and integrity, and also realizing that um, we still have to wrestle with the system that is not in place for us to flourish. So we're holding the tension of, can I function as a human being and love God and love people? And what happens when I come against that purpose when my government or my system of community is calling me to worship the wrong God?
mm. Thank you for saying that.
So that's what I got. Thank you for allowing me to share that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, as I was putting together the truth communication, um, I think what you're doing a beautiful job of expressing verbally came to me as like an image of like um, it will literally just squeeze who you are out of you. Like constriction was the image that came to me. Like squeezing the true identity of a person out, extinguishing it. So thank you for putting words to that.
And Tia, if I
I,
can cute for a second and separate the wheat from the chaff or whatever that is, and that sifting that Jesus talks about, like
mm-hmm,
related to what Ed was saying too.
mm-hmm.
Thank you. Since I'm unmuted, I'll just say what I wrote in the chat in case you haven't had a chance to see it. You were bringing to mind um, how Jesus called or hung out with tax collectors, and in light of what you were sharing on the Caesar thing, I was like, ooh, that makes him even like his revolutionariness even more poignant and powerful and profound in that context relative to that empire, what was going on. And what Ed was just saying too, it makes it all the more like what he was doing was turning things upside down. Even, I mean, it makes me appreciate that even more that he called Matthew out of that tree to be a disciple and to eat with him at his house, knowing that he was a tax collector. So that's makes those other aspects even more powerful to revisit those elements too. So thank you.
Thank you, Ross.
And
Brian.
I'm real quick, I'm almost done, y'all. And I'm still chewing on Brian's blessing and the impact has context. And I'm layering that over what you've shared too. Like it's just really rich.
Bryant, were you going to share something?
Yes, hello. Of course, all kinds of yes, and um, uh, lots of gratitude. I said in the chat, you're doing exactly exactly the right thing. I think in the same way that Jesus enters into the tax collector, it's not to say this is happening and this is happening. It's I'm going to get close enough to change it. I'm bringing it in to our space. We bring in the trigger, we bring in the problem to our space so that we change it.
Mm,
So that doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs as an ingredient in this moment, in our group, in our space to change. So you're doing exactly what you should be doing. And to Ed, I thought about another moment that came to my mind right before I shared the blessing. Um, Another person I had met who had recently become homeless and had never navigated any of that before, had been, in her words, had been privileged and had been in institutions and didn't know at all how to navigate anything. And she just happened, I was doing like kind of staring at a big bush of roses in front of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And she just walked past me and asked if I was homeless. And I said, I didn't know the context. And I said, no, but I have been. So we ended up talking. And in her question about how to navigate, it was the question so much that Ed was saying is that how do I how do I maintain myself, but everything I have to do in order to change my situation, I have to engage in organizations and things that I don't understand and are requiring unethical behavior. And we had that conversation. And I said, the first thing is to recognize you're absolutely right that these, what's called social services, what's called your way out, are devaluing you. And also, you exist. And part of what I shared with her was I make myself an altar of truth, that there isn't something that is right in the tangible in front of you. This current tangible world isn't telling you the truth, but you can tell you the truth as you enter into the doors of that organization. As you fill out the form you shouldn't have to fill out, as you go through those processes, you keep the truth on your own altar within yourself. Um, so that was, yeah, that I thought about, Ed, what you were saying. And the only other thing I'll say right now is I think that in thinking about the putting a name and a picture on a coin and on paper and everywhere. And when we think about how many problems there are and how many places he's putting himself, what's good to remember is that the reason they have to go to so many lengths and so many places and so many different types of noise and so many pieces of this and that where they're everywhere is that that is how many places the sacred is, and that's
mm,
how many places the truth is, and how many places restoration and beauty and how easily accessible it actually is to us, that he knows and they know that it's got to be everywhere. It's got to overwhelm people. It's got to ruin people because the sacred is everywhere. So there's just they come at it from a thousand directions because there's a thousand ways to re-engage.
thank you, Bryant. Yeah, I when I saw I, I didn't when I heard the news about things going on with our money, I, I actually was like, of course. Of course, that's like this is not new. And of course that's a move. And uh, say that like knowing the very deep implications that I have or that it implies, but also I think part of the beauty of exploring the contemplative dimension of the gospel and um, Jesus and the disinherited is that when we have the wherewithal to name of course, that's what is happening, then we also, in that naming, stay within our uh, ability to respond from a place of consciousness and presence. Like it comes down to deciding how um, we will steward our energies when we are aware of of course, he's trying to put his image on a coin. Of course, he wants his signature on our dollars. Like, of course. Okay. Thank you all. I feel like that is a good place for us to pause for today. If you have any additional questions throughout the week, you're welcome to share them in our group me. You're welcome to email them to me if you don't want them in the community platform. And I'll spend some time with them this week. I think that, yeah, there's more to say about this, so we'll continue the discussion. This is the last weekend in June or May, so we're first person in person, not first
It's
person
the,
in person.
it's the 31st next week of May.
Ah, one more Sunday. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. So one more gathering online, and then we'll be together in person for those of us in the Houston area the weekend of the first weekend in June. An update on where we are with our offering moment. Let's see. My goodness. Okay, so the ways in which you can give are all found on our website, awakeningsinc.org. On Venmo, we are Awakenings-Inc. On Cash App, we are Awakenings Movement. We also have text to give. You can text AWAKEN. It's kind of in the center of this graphic here. The dollar amount, and then you can send it to the number there on your screen, 832-481-4434. And that is a way that you can engage through text to give. Our May budget is $6,446, and our May giving, we are currently at $3,260. So thank you all for the ways in which you do contribute financially and within the broader economy. Everything that we receive is stewarded with intention and is in support of our mission and our vision. So thank you for your contributions.